Welcome back to another episode of 6 and 6, where we cover 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. Beginning in North America, a new rule being implemented in the United States could force U.S. automakers to halt production of cars that were manufactured in China. The rule also includes any software used within the cars that is predominantly made by a Chinese company. From Reuters, quote, "We anticipate at this point that any vehicle that is manufactured in China and sold in the United States would fall within the prohibitions," said Liz Cannon, who heads the Commerce Department's Information and Communications Technology Office. GM and Ford are aware, she added, that going forward, that production in China for U.S. market would, quote, "need to be shut down in China and moved elsewhere," end quote. Many other companies, including Volvo and Polaris, would also be affected and have begun evaluating whether or not they could get an exemption. Across the Pacific in China, there has been a test of an intercontinental ballistic missile that actually finished its flight path somewhere in the Pacific. The launch took some by surprise, including Japan, who said they received no prior warning from the Chinese government. From BBC, quote, "China's nuclear weapons tests usually take place domestically, and it previously test-fired ICBMs west into the Tamalkan Desert in the Xinjiang region. This is believed to be the first time since 1980 that it launched an ICBM into international waters," end quote. Some have suggested that this is a warning to nearby nations such as Japan and the Philippines, especially given the rising tensions between the nations recently, while others have proposed that this is a clear move to antagonize the United States. Now to Australia, where the local Vanguard subsidiary is under investigation for its misleading claims about an ESG investment fund that is offered to its clients. From Reuters, quote, "The Australian Securities Investment Commission, the ASIC, said that the court found Vanguard Investments Australia misled investors about its ethical conscious bond index fund. This fund said it screened issuers to exclude those with operations in some sectors such as fossil fuels, when that was not actually the case," the ASIC added. Quote, "Approximately 74% of the securities in the fund by market value were not researched or screened against applicable ESG or environmental, social, and governance criteria," the court found, end quote. Vanguard has said it is working with investigators and that there were no financial losses to its customers. In Europe, there is outrage over a murder of a college student in France that has revitalized the conversation around proper deportation policy. Though many fear the National Rally Party will seize this opportunity to push less than savory rhetoric, others have begun to ask the same questions. Mainly, why was this convicted criminal still here? From BBC, quote, "The suspected killer was traced to Geneva, where he was arrested on Tuesday and awaits deportation to France. He is a 22-year-old Moroccan man who was released from detention in France earlier this month after being released for raping a student in 2019. Named by French media as Ta-O, he was the subject of an expulsion order from France, which had not been carried out," end quote. As we come to South America, Argentina is facing lower than expected water levels in one of its main transportation thoroughfares, the Paraná River. From Reuters, quote, "The Paraná River is really low," Guillermo Wade, manager of the Chamber of Port and Maritime Activities, said in comments to Reuters. Quote, "They are loading 3 feet and 8 inches less than they could load if the river were normal. So that means approximately 15% less than what could be loaded," end quote. Shippers are looking at higher prices as they will have to use more boats to move the same amount of product, mainly grain and soy, which will also increase the price of agricultural products that are being sold to the final customer and being transported through the river. In the northeast of Africa, the people of Sudan are facing another calamity as they struggle to live without being affected by the ongoing civil war. From BBC, quote, "More than 430 people have died from cholera in the past month," Sudan's health ministry said, as the civil war continues to ravage the country. The number of infections has risen to about 14,000, it said in a statement. Treating the infected has become extremely difficult given the various restrictions from either side of the conflict on the different movements of aid vehicles and the increased flooding throughout the rest of the country. And with all that said, thank you for coming through, listening to this entire episode. If you want to listen to this on the RSS feed, you can find all the links down there in the description below that like and subscribe button. There's one for Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine. You can also read all of the articles down there. The links will be down there in the description. And if you want to listen to the podcast, it comes out on this exact same RSS feed in the same YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and every Thursday and Tuesday. You also have something over on the Twitter at Your Daily Flip where I post a Twitter tirade. It's a little bit less formal, just kind of talking off the top of the head, not necessarily fleshed out thoughts that have been analyzed or news stories that have been processed and I've written up a script for. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe, don't die.